G'day everyone. Another Monday morning has rolled around and it's time to get back to work. I keep talking about doing drawer slides and drawers, but I'm still not going to do them. I've decided that I'm going to do overhead cabinets next. Okay, happy with that. Set up the featherboard. This is a Bow Featherboard Pro. Basically, it's a finger saving device. It allows me to put pressure on the timber, keep it over against the fence without getting my fingers near the blade. Right, so this goes here like so. There's an overhang here, so we're going to have a piece of ply that comes through here to blank the end of the cabinet off. There's an overhang here because there'll be a piece of ply that comes up here. There'll be a small lip. So it's looking good. It's basically it's all working out. So this is the head end of the bed overhead cabinet. So as you can see, I've actually allowed for a shelf at both ends, which means you can plug your phone in to charge off the light that's going to be here. Has a USB outlet in it, so you can plug your phone in to charge and chuck it up on the shelf, or put a book up there or whatever above your bed position. Okay, well the overhead cabinets are now ready to be sanded and prepped for painting, primed, and they'll get enamel paint on them. So while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to now turn my attention to fitting drawer runners, getting ready to fit drawers, or make drawers and fit them. So these are 500mm soft close full extension drawer runners. Never fitted drawer runners before, but I've watched a few YouTube videos, so what could possibly go wrong? The prevailing wisdom when fitting drawer runners in a cabinet seems to be you cut spaces that you sit into the cabinet, and then you can sit your drawer runner on top of the spacer and screw it in place. That way you get them in the exact same place on both sides. It's not really going to work for me though, because I have 2 banks of 4 drawers, both of which have a wheel arch in the way. So I can't just sit spaces down onto the floor or onto the bottom of the cabinet because of the wheel arches. So I'm just going to have to use a square, sit my runners down onto that rail at the bottom of the drawer, square up to the front of the cabinet and screw the runners in that way. It's probably a little bit more awkward than it would be if I could use spacers, but I can't, so I have to work with what I've got. In a regular kitchen you might get away with not very many screws, but I feel like in a van with vibrations, driving down the road, all that kind of thing, more screws is more screws. So in the kitchen, the drawers are all different sizes, so spacers weren't really a thing I was going to be able to use, even once I'd got the bottom drawer runner sorted. But in the wardrobe, the drawers are all the same depth. Now that I've set up the bottom runners, I can just use a spacer to do the next ones, then on top of that for the next ones, and so on up and get them all done. It is much quicker and easier with a spacer than with the square. I've been through and made myself a list of drawers and their dimensions, what that they need to be, and then from that I've made up a cut list. And then I went online and I found a cut list generator, or cut list optimizer, where you enter all your pieces that you want to cut and your stock, the size of the sheets and the curve of your blade, and it generates a cut list for you. I've had to leave off the bottoms for the wardrobe drawers off this cut list because it couldn't quite get everything to fit. That's fine. I've actually got spare 6mm ply, and I'm happy to make the bottoms for the wardrobe drawers out of 6mm ply anyway. Keep the thicker ply for the kitchen drawers where there's probably going to be more weight in the drawers. So now I've got a cut list, I can go ahead and cut all the pieces for the drawers, and then I'll show you how I'm going to go about making the drawers. Believe it or not, that's the best part of 2 sheets of ply sitting there. I've got a few offcuts sitting here on the table saw that I've been using for testing, and those 2 pieces there are really the only significant pieces left. Anyway, so the way that I'm going to construct the drawers is using what's known as the quarter-quarter method, or the half-half method, depending on your perspective. It doesn't quite work out exactly how I would like it to, because the ply that Bunnings markets as AA grade 12mm marine ply is actually 13mm thick, not 12mm thick, which throws a few things off a little bit. I've got a flat top grind 6mm kerf blade in the table saw that I've swapped over. And so the way that this drawer construction method works is you cut a dado in some pieces, rebate in some pieces, and they slot together. Anyway, I'll cut some pieces and show you exactly how that works in terms of all the parts of the drawers being cut with the same settings on the table saw. Now that I've got it dialed in, I don't need to touch it. I can make all the cuts I need to make and then assemble the drawers, and I get a good strong joint. Like you can see, this joint with no glue is just a nice tight fit. Not too tight. There's room for glue in there, but it will actually hold together without any glue. And so this is going to make for a good strong drawer construction. Anyway, that's the end of the day. It's, I don't know, but after 5, I'm going to call it quits for the day rather than push on and make mistakes or anything like that. I've got other stuff that I need to do this evening, so we'll be back at it, and by the end of tomorrow, hopefully we'll have some assembled drawers. G'day everyone, it's Wednesday morning, it's time to make drawers. So my concern with the size of the thickness of the Bunnings 12mm ply being 13mm is what impact that's going to have on the overall drawer dimensions with the setup for the saw that I need to get everything to work. The depth of the drawers, how far back into the cabinet they go, is not an issue. If they grow by a couple of millimeters, it's not going to matter. I've got plenty of leeway there. It's the width of the drawers which is the main concern. If they're too wide, that can cause binding with the drawer runners. If they're too narrow, well, they're not going to end up too narrow. If anything, they're going to end up too wide. So I'm just measuring up on my test piece to see what impact it's going to have. So on my test piece here, you can see how the cut works. So the drawer sides will have dados like this, and the drawer fronts and backs will have a slot. This thin piece down here isn't really meant to be there. If it was a 12mm thick ply panel, then it would just be 6 mils of upstand, 6 mils of rebate, and no thin piece. I think it's going to be okay because that's the drawer fronts and backs. So if anything, that extra little bit of length is going to be on the depth of the drawer, not on the width of the drawer. I just need to check this dimension across here, how that's impacted by the setup that I've got, to make sure that it's not going to cause my drawers to grow too much. It's 83mm, and the whole thing overall ends up being 89mm, so that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. It means that my drawer is not going to grow in width, and it's not going to bind up the runners, which is my concern. So I've got here all the pieces for one drawer. This is the drawer that goes below the microwave space. So I'll do all the cuts on these pieces, and then I'll show you how it all goes together.
Every morning.
I'm building a
van.
van.
Sorry?
I'm building a van, mate.
But every day.
No,
Shut it up. It's every day.
Some time later.
Okay, so how this works. Sides and ends slot together. Bottom fits into the slot around the base. And in theory, end up with a really nice solid drawer. It's all a bit of a tight fit, so it's going to need some squeezing and with clamps and probably a little bit of persuasion with a mallet and that sort of thing. But okay, so it takes a bit of persuading, but it's a good tight fit. Bit of glue and some clamps, and it'll make a good solid drawer. So one of the strengths of this is that with the front joins like this, when you're pulling on the front, so this is the front of the cabinet, you'd be pulling the drawer out of the cabinet this way. This captured join here makes for a good solid tight join. Now I did make a couple of mistakes as I was cutting the slots, but that's okay. It's not going to compromise the integrity of the drawer. This isn't very deep here. It goes to the thickness that it's meant to be down here. It's not going to look the prettiest, but that's all right. I can live with that. So I can glue and clamp that up and try not to get confused as I continue on with the rest of the cuts. It's going to fit. So we'll go and carry on with all the other drawers now. These are the drawer catches, and cupboard catches that I'm going to be using. They, on the drawers, mount inside the drawer, and you pull and it releases the catch. But they can't handle the amount of thickness I'm going to have with the drawer front and then the actual seam drawer front. So I need to remove some material from the drawer fronts to allow the catch to sit closer to the front. I think what I'm going to do is I'll set up the router table and do them before I assemble the drawers, but I'll obviously need to do this one post-assembly. I realised I needed to come up with a better way, so I've made this jig which I can run the router in. Got a centre line there. Strike a centre line on the drawer and square it up, line the two things up, clamp it all down to the bench, and I can go ahead and route it out and struck a centre line down there. Other ones are the same size as well, and then I can just rip through them. So I've got my drawer carcasses all assembled, and so I need to give them a sand and a seal. I do need to do a bit more work on this one, which has got a cutout to fit over the wheel arch, so I need to make the pieces for that and fit them. Also need to do the sanding on the overhead cabinets ready for paint. All of that's a bit noisy, and it's 8:15, and I've had a neighbour who's pretty unhappy about the amount of noise that I make. So I'm going to wait to do any of that stuff until a bit later in the day. In the meantime, though, I have got these heat exchanger mounts, and I know pretty much where I'm going to put the heat exchangers. So I'm going to do some work on the plumbing, which I think I can do relatively quietly. So I'm going to work on that for the time being. So it turns out I was wrong. The drawers did grow in width by a couple of mil, 2 or 3 mil. So it's causing issues with the drawers trying to bind on the runners, or not being able to get put in at all. So you can see here my solution to that. I've set up my no clearance fence, sacrificial fence on the saw, and I'm just running the drawer through to gain myself that extra couple of millimeters that I need. Just a rip on each side of the drawer, and that sorts it out. G'day, it's Friday morning. This morning I'm going to be painting. I have got all the overhead cupboards and the drawers all sanded and ready for paint, so I'm just going to be getting stuck into getting the first coat of paint on them first up this morning. So with the drawer boxes, I'm not painting the outsides, I'm just painting the inside to seal the ply and make it easier to keep them clean. I think the time has finally come to try and work out what I'm going to do with this. The reason that I've been putting it off is because I don't know. There's a bit of a life lesson here, I reckon. It was much easier than I expected it was going to be. I've been putting it off because I wasn't really sure what to do with it. But really happy. I'm sure you'll agree that's much better than it was. So I let the glue go off, and then a little bit of finishing work to do on it, and some paint, and it'll be another little job ticked off. So before I can put the drawers into the kitchen, I need to put the bench top in. This is what I'm using to oil the bench top. It's a food safe oil which is made specifically for timber bench tops. Instructions say to apply a liberal coating. Goes on pretty easy. And then after 45 minutes, so it's just gone midday, after 45 minutes wipe it off. So 4 to 1, I need to wipe it off. Okay, that goes on nice. It's easy. Well, you've been charging. I've put in the overhead cupboards in the bedroom, and been painting some walls. Overhead cupboard in the kitchen is installed. And now it's time to install the bench top. So I thought I'd take a moment to explain what I'm doing. The RV Labs drawer and cupboard latches require a certain distance from the face above it that the catch plate will fix to. And so it's 12 millimeters. So these pieces of timber are 12 millimeters thick. And I'm using them to set the distance from the top of the drawer to the face above it, and then screwing off the drawer runners. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to carry on. Just got these 4 wardrobe drawers left to do. Well, it's been a bit of a challenging week in some ways. I was taken completely by surprise and caught off guard when the neighbour came and started shouting at me. Lots of obscenities and not a lot of sense. And I guess I got a bit defensive at first. I was a little bit confused about what he was on about, and I got a little bit defensive, and he picked up on that and was not happy about that either. Unfortunately, he'd been unhappy about the amount of noise that I make for quite a while, and he'd let it fester, and rather than coming and talking to me until he got to the point where he exploded. If he had come and talked to me earlier, there are things I could have done to mitigate the noise, or make sure I wasn't making noise too early in the day, or whatever. I've been abiding by the rules, more than abiding by the rules that there are in place around here for when you are and aren't allowed to make noise. But you can go beyond that and be considerate of your neighbours and their circumstances, but you can only do that if you know them. Anyway, I guess the lesson is that it's important to be kind. You don't know what other people are going through, and you don't know what's going on for them, and so be kind. Try and understand and be curious about what's going on for other people, rather than jumping to defence and or rising to the challenge and inflaming a situation. I think I didn't inflame the situation. I tried to calm him. I tried to have a conversation, but I probably could have done a better job of trying to understand where he was coming from off the bat. But as I say, I was just caught totally by surprise. So be kind. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for episode 25. Thanks for joining me. I'm really happy with the work that I've got done this week. The kitchen installed, the drawers installed, the bench top installed, overhead cabinets painted and installed. It's really coming along, and I feel well poised. I've essentially got 2 more weeks of working on the van scheduled, and after that the van is supposed to be finished. Whether it will be finished or not is anybody's guess, but that's where we're headed. So join me next week, see how close we are to finish by the end of next week. There's lots of little jobs that need finishing off, and a few big things that still need doing. So join me next week. Thanks. See ya.